Hi friends, Concy here from atop Serenity Hill, and today I want to talk a little bit about creative blocks. I have been going through that for the last couple of months, and I know that it happens to all of us creatives and artists at some point in time. And really, what do we do? How do we get out of a creative block? So one of the things that I've discovered is that I need to really lean into projects that I love doing. Things like decks, which is what I'm showing you today, creating a deck. I love to paint flowers. I love to, stencil and use my stamps. I love to do these simple processes. And sometimes I think, well, maybe I'm not stretching myself. I'm not learning something new. I'm just doing the same boring stuff over and over again. And when you're in a creative block, that's what you really need to lean into. If you start looking for crazy new ideas and growth and new learning opportunities, it can actually stifle the block and make the block worse because you need to go back into a learning mode, and right now you just need to be in a doing mode. So what I really want to encourage you to do is to lean into those things that you love doing, whether you think you keep doing the same thing over and over again and it's kind of boring. If you love doing it, it's not boring. It's fun and it's playful to you. So what I decided to do was create a deck. I got inspired by a reel that literally stopped me on Instagram. And I paid attention to that. I paid attention to the fact that I stopped. And something about that reel caught my attention. And it was someone making a deck. And they had taped off a piece of paper. And so I was like, oh, that's fun. And then by the end of the reel, which, is like a minute long, I realized that they also had created washi tape. And so I was like, that's something I could do. I love making washi tape. I love creating decks. I love painting flowers. Why don't I do that and see how I can lean into the playful, fun, just easy, simple aspect of that. So the paper that I'm working on is Bristol board. You can use any paper you want, honestly. And then I just lay down some masking tape and I covered it in gesso, which was another suggestion from the reel. I didn't have to think about it. I was just following someone else's idea to help me get started, is where I'm going with that. You want to, use this idea, what I'm showing you right now, to just get started. Because once I got started, I started doing completely different things than the reel that I saw, but it got me going and it got me thinking about my supplies and my creativity and how I could just lean into this really simple project. So if you're watching right now, obviously, you would see that I have mixed watercolor and acrylic paint. And that was something that I just decided to do. I painted the flowers with acrylic paint, and then I started picking up my watercolor. I love using watercolor more than acrylics right now, but I'm so used to painting these flowers in acrylics that's what I did. I went with that really easy win. I know how to paint these roses and daisies and leaves blindfolded. I've been doing it for years. So I painted them. But then I went to the supply that I found really easy, which is watercolor. And I started adding watercolor over the acrylic paint just to enhance it. And then I went to the silliest, simplest, easiest thing you could do, splattering. And I splattered and I splattered and I sprayed water. Because I was just looking to play and create some kind of visual interest all over this page. So once that was done and I dried it, then it was my next intuition is always adding something black. I love adding black accents to everything. And so, just stamping with one of my rubber stamps was another way of adding an element. But this time I got really specific about where I added the dragonflies because I had laid out cards. There's 12 cards here. So I made sure dragonfly ended up in every card because I knew in the end I was going to cut this apart. Once I was finished with all the design, I should say, all the color that I've put down, I realized that it was ridiculously busy. And my go-to for when anything gets overwhelming and busy to my eyes is to put white on top of it. So I always tend to grab a stencil and some white gesso and just tone down what the background is looking like. Now, while I'm doing all of this, I am also covering the masking tape. So I am building washi tape as well as a deck in the same go. So I'm creating a deck, which I can do something with. I have an idea for that I'm going to share. But I'm also creating washi tape, which I can use in a later project. So now I've got a starting point for something else on an art journal page with this gorgeous washi tape, which you'll see when I pull it. It's really, really beautiful. So the other thing I want to give you to lean into is when we're in a creative slump or a creative block or creative rut, however you want to call it, and you need a project, sometimes it helps to come up with a project that you can share. So when I thought about doing this deck, I own a lot of decks. If you've been around my world a lot, you know I create a lot of decks. And I had a book club coming up, and I was like, well, here's a reason for me to be creative too. I can make this deck, I can put words on it for inspiration, and then I can share it with my book club and give part of what I've done as a creative practice to someone else to use. So that is another inspiration, another thought for you is, if you're in a creative block or having a creative block, you just don't know what to do, is there someone you can make something for? You know, it doesn't have to be an art journal page. It could just be that you paint the front of a greeting card and you send it to a friend, or you paint a thin piece of paper as a bookmark and then you hand it out to someone randomly, you know, at the bookstore that you like to frequent. So creative blocks can be just about leaning into your simple, easy fallbacks of your creative practice, things that you always do, that you always love to do, the supplies that you just fall in love with over and over again. And it can also be leaning into doing something for someone else, because then it gives you a reason and a purpose to pick up your supplies and go and make something. So I hope this gives you some inspiration for if you are in a creative block right now. I hope the project gives you some inspiration. It is not a difficult project. It's really simple. It probably took me about an hour to do the whole thing, and I really loved it. I love how the colors came out. I love, I used some of my favorite stamps. I used some of my favorite words. I definitely used my favorite colors, my favorite supplies. So I really leaned into what it is that makes it simple to have a creative practice. Thank you so much for joining me today, and I can't wait to see you in another video.